Yeah, I really have the feeling often to sing. How many miles? Da 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 da. But sometimes I just don't know what. And right now, I was reflecting on the last time I felt like I felt today. And I realized that it was also the time where I didn't leave the house for weeks on end. And, you know, if you don't like the cold, like, I said that already, but just wear really warm clothes. As long as you go outside, it doesn't really matter. It can already make all the difference to go outside. And maybe you don't know what to do. I mean, just looking at this meadow, you can just watch bees. You can just look at the different colors of green. You can just look at the flowers. And now there's all these seeds flying around. But there's also something that I realized, that some people, they don't see that. They don't walk around and they don't look at all this beauty like a child, right? They don't get amazed anymore by all that marvelous creation that surrounds us. Like that these seeds can fly and that, you know, life is happening everywhere. And that's what happens when you are at home too much. You forget these things. You forget to live and to love life. And that's of course also if you're always thinking about the things that you miss, the things that you don't have. And at a certain point you will develop even a resistance to live. And there's one specific moment, because when I walk around with people, sometimes I try to tell them, like, don't you get amazed at like how this looks like? Yeah, well, it's just a tree, isn't it? It's like, what? I mean, can't you look at these fine details? But of course, if somebody's really happy about it in one moment, like, doesn't mean... Of course, if somebody gets really excited, doesn't mean that I have to get excited over it too. But somehow this one moment with somebody in the park and we smoked a bit of weed, just a bit, it wasn't much. You know, you take like 2 to 3 hits of a pure joint. Not this mixed stuff. No tobacco, never. And then you just take 3 hits and you go for a walk. And you just start marveling at, you know, you get really close to a tree and you just look at the bark and you just try opening up to nature. And I was once with somebody in a park and it was a really beautiful day and we smoked, and I somehow had the feeling she couldn't really see the beauty of nature. Maybe she would say something else about it, I don't know, but that's just the feeling I had. And somehow I started talking to her, and I didn't know what I said, but I felt like in her there was this resistance, like she was really clamping up. And then somehow I got to a specific part, and I said something, and in her it's like poof, like something opened, and suddenly she was a different person. Like suddenly she felt more alive than she did before. And sometimes you come across these new skills in yourself. And right, that doesn't have to be with everyone. So I actually don't like talking about these things because some people are abusing these abilities. Right? If you're a salesman, for example, you can use this kind of ability to make people buy your things, and that's just evil. Right? It's just like, you know how it feels like. Suddenly you bought something, you don't even know why. Because he bewitched you. But, it's just a form of energy. And you can use it in a way to sell stuff to people. But what if you could sell life to someone? What if you could use this skill to suddenly, to kind of convince somebody that life is actually worth living? But for that, of course, you have to know how it's like to live. So if you want to sell life to someone, and not your life, but just, life is beautiful, and, or we have to protect the forests, we have to preserve nature, eat more vegan and stuff. But you can't do it by getting angry at people or forcing them to see it. No, they also have to open up to you. So if they don't come to you, there's no much use in trying to sell it to them, because apparently they don't want it. And maybe they don't want it because you're not a very good example for somebody who's living his life. So you first have to work on yourself and live your life. And if you have the feeling, I want to be acknowledged, right? Then, well, first acknowledge that you are not where you want to be. So it's no use getting angry at people that they don't watch your stuff, because maybe you're just not ready. And you still have some work to do. So you just keep working on yourself, that you are stable, that you develop new skills, that you progress, that you don't let life beat you down, that you set boundaries with people, that you sort out a lot of the problems. It's like, with my dad, for example, right? You could say, I needed to open up more to my dad, but it was actually, I needed to open up more to myself. Because it wasn't so much about loving my father, it was more about loving myself. And if I love myself more, also means on the long run, of course, it will be easier to love my father, because I realize a bit more how I can do that, which is to just leave him be, and then he leaves me be, and from a distance we can somehow like each other. But right, I don't have to be like friends with him, and that's what I tried most of my life. And that made me feel miserable. Because it's fighting something in me that's just there, and sometimes it's better to just let it rest. And first I had to establish myself as a man, and to I have to learn to provide for myself, because as long as I'm depending on him, there will always be a struggle. And I'm pretty sure that some things will never change. I'm not going to help him with this kind of work anymore, and I don't expect him to help me. Because I want to do my own kind of work. And I don't want to work for other men. That's just how it is. I want to do most of the stuff that I do. I first want to do it by myself, and to prove to myself that I can do it. So if I ever, if I'm going to buy a house, then what I want is to do everything myself. I want to paint myself. I want to build a yurte, if that means anything to you. It's like a kind of a shamanic tent or something, or a teepee. I want to build these things myself. I want to build furniture. I want to work with wood. And I want to do this by myself. I don't want anybody looming over me, telling me how to use tools, or right, I want to teach this to myself. I want to look at YouTube, get some ideas, and then I want to do it. And I don't want other men to help me with this. That's just how it is. I just want to figure it out by myself, because that's a challenge, and that's what I have been doing with spirituality and with my own depression. I just figured out how I work so I could learn to understand how I work. I made it a challenge to figure out what are my needs, what do I need, And apparently I needed to work, I needed to learn to kind of play with myself again, which is the kind of work that I'm doing, recording videos. To just be creative means, you know, you're kind of playing with yourself and you're working with yourself. And if you continue to do that, you will realize that a lot of change is, you know, possible in a very short period of time, that sometimes you think you're about to lose your mind because you're changing so quickly. Of course, for that you need also room for change and room for thought. So you have to also have the space available, and you have to take the space, because life is, of course, lived in kind of communities, but at the same time, you know, you also have to be a bit selfish about it, because if you feel like there are things you have to do, like once in a while go alone into the forest to like reflect on what is going on in your life, and your wife then has to take care of the children for a weekend, then that just has to be like this. And after all, I think that's also what's needed, because I think women come to this earth, to this planet, to this experience to be actually mothers. But society has taken that away from them, and they've also taken all the good men. So now we have to learn to be men again, and women have to learn to be women and mothers. And mothers need to be strong and independent, and it's not their job to worry about their child all the time. No, a mother's job is to trust and to love. That's it. And to take care. And a father's job is also to love and to trust and to do and to create and to provide, and in a way also take care, but you know, it's more like the security and to provide, and in a strong and kind of just way. Yeah, and I think that's all for this video.